Alrighty, everybody, welcome into the Wide Eye Sports Fantasy Corner. Every Thursday, we bring a video to you about our fantasy thoughts for the following week of the 2024 NFL season and just fantasy in general. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. We don't have the week-to-week stuff happening yet. So, me and Riley, it is draft season. We had different thoughts, what we could do, what we could, say on the show. We thought about doing a mock draft. We thought about doing some other things, but we settled on we are going to give our take on at each position who will finish number one. So who's going to be the number one quarterback in fantasy this year? Who's going to be the number one running back? Who's going to be the number one wide receiver, tight end, and defense? We're leaving kickers out because not everybody does that. It's really hard to predict. It's kind of a crapshoot. So we're not going to go there with that. You could talk about that all day for different reasons. So we're just going to stick quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, all that and more right after this. All right, as I like to start every episode post-credits, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, because if you like this video and it gets to 50 likes, we will be doing a giveaway to any one person who liked this video. So all you got to do is like it and then, get it to, 49 other people, and then they like it, and then we do a giveaway. And you could win that giveaway. You could win a mini helmet. You could win a jersey. You could win a gift card. You could win all sorts of things that you won't know until you like this video and win the contest. So subscribe, share to your friends, get us out there. We love you for it. We're going to jump into things now. All right, so let's start quarterback. Yeah, tight end or quarterback? Which one do you want to start with?
Let's do quarterback.
All right, quarterback first. I think we're going to have the same answer here. I can go first. I think so. I think we're gonna have the same answer.
Really?
I think so. I think we are. It's Josh Allen for me. I mean, here's the thing.
I genuinely did not expect that.
Here's the thing. You can't ignore the fact that in 3 of the past 4 years, he's finished as the number 1 fantasy quarterback. Now, granted, he had a number 1 receiver, but last year Diggs was not that guy, right? And he still finished number 1 in fantasy. His upside as far as rushing touchdowns. So you're not going to like my reasoning for this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Josh Allen is not a good enough thrower of the football to succeed in the red zone. So he utilizes his legs instantaneously. They get him on the move. They do naked bootleg play action. They get him moving so that he can use 6'6", 250 with a 4.5 40 to bulldoze his way into the end zone. And that's awesome. I don't think it's as good come, postseason and playoff time and winning Super Bowls. It's not as ideal. It's possible. I'm not saying they don't have a shot, but it's not as ideal. And because of that, he gets 8 to 12 rushing touchdowns a year, and that's huge for fantasy when it comes to quarterbacks. He's going to throw. He's going to get passing touchdowns. He's a good quarterback. He's, a top 15 passer in the NFL. For sure, maybe even top 10 passer in the NFL. I think he's a little bit too interception heavy to go top 10, but he's 100% top 15. And because of his ability to have size and move, that makes him top 3 in the NFL as a quarterback in general. So
my only counter to what you would say, I think he is a good enough passer in the red zone. I think if I am Josh Allen and I am scrambling, I'm thinking to myself, why am I going to throw a risky pass to this wide receiver when I can just run it myself and secure the touchdown? I don't think he's going to have 15 rushing touchdowns again. I do think he has 40-plus touchdowns. I am banking on him having less total turnovers, more because of how the offense is going to look going forward. But, I think Josh Allen will be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy again.
Yeah, I could very much agree with that. And I'm trying to pull up here. I don't see it. Passing depth, maybe. Yeah, I don't have it here. I was trying to look up red zone statistics for him, but it's just not. I can't find it right now. But, yeah, I definitely think Josh Allen will be the number 1 quarterback come, February. I just don't know if the team will have the same success. But
Yeah.
because of his rushing upside, same reason that Lamar Jackson would be my number 2. Because of the rushing upside, you can't ignore him. Like that, it's having a running back and a quarterback at the same position, and that is that's why Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, all those guys have rushing upside, right? Mahomes not as much as the other ones, but he'll throw for 4 touchdowns a game and then rush for 50 yards on 2 plays, and you're like, oh well, that's awesome. That's an extra 5 points. That's an additional touchdown, basically. So that is what it is. Let's move on to tight ends here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Dalton Kincaid.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. I was in a struggle, but if you'll go Kincaid, I'll go the other route.
All right. So Dalton Kincaid last year was the 11th overall fantasy tight end, and that was with Diggs there. Let me see if I can pull up his.
No, and I completely love what you're saying. I just had one other guy where I was like, man.
He did have a stretch in the middle that kind of propelled him up there, and he kind of slacked off in the last, 2/3, and he didn't come on super strong right away. He missed a game against the Giants and then came back against New England, and that's when he really took off. He had to start the season. He went 6 points, 9 points, 2 points, 6 points, 3 points, and then missed the game against the Giants, and then went 15, 17, 16, 16, 10, 8, and then had the bye week. Has 7 points against Kansas City, 0 points on 2 targets against Dallas, 1 point on 2 targets against the Chargers, and then sees New England, has 7 targets with 12 points, and then Miami has 8 targets with 15 points. So it's hard for me to from the Giants game on, fantasy good, great. I love everything about it. Before that, very concerning, but he was a rookie. We're seeing where he's at. He's only 24, 23 at the time. So I like it. I think he'll go from 11, and I think because of Josh Allen's ability to, as you've stated before, lock on to people a little bit, I think that this will be a prime target to have a huge jump and become the number 1 target in all the NFL for tight ends.
Okay. So no, I am really big on Dalton Kincaid. I think he's going to go great. Since you went that route, I will go the Sam Laporta route. Going into his second year, I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have another nuts. What do you have? 1,500 yards?
Yeah, something like that.
14?
I can look while you talk. I'll look.
I don't think he's going to get quite there again. I think Laporta gets a little uptick in targets, yards, receptions, everything like that.
Yeah, he had 15, so 1,515 yards.
Yeah. So I do not think Amon-Ra St. Brown hits that again, and I think Laporta will take up a little bit of that slack. I think he'll end up being the number 1 tight end.
I'm going to say this. So every year in fantasy, it's been Travis Kelce. I think for the first time in a number of years, there are 5 to 6 guys that are like, okay, these are all like Travis Kelce point level tight ends, right? Like that 200, like your tight ends are going to get you. Beforehand, it was like Travis Kelce at like 200, and then the next guy was like $170, $160, right? So it was like a 30-point difference. And you're like, oh, well, if I don't get that guy, I might as well just wait. Now I think Kelce could hit 200, Laporta could hit 200, Andrews could hit 200, McBride could hit 200, Kittle could hit 200, Kincaid could hit 200, Pitts could hit 200. And I think all those guys, that's my total list, but I think all of those guys are capable of going 180 to 210 points, which Travis Kelce, as the number 1 tight end for a number of years, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the past 8 years. He has been the number 1 tight end, and the 2 years he wasn't, he was the 2nd ranked in 2021 and the 3rd ranked last year. So,
and if you look, I mean, there were years where he had 300 more receiving yards than the next closest tight end.
Yeah.
I think part of it is where Kelce is at in his career, and the other part of it is all the young rising stars at the tight end position.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of getting a little old school on it. I said 180 to 210. It's really more like 210 to 230 would be like tight end one numbers. He was, 219 was third last year. 2 years ago, Travis Kelce had 316 points, which is ridiculous.
Was that didn't he have like 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards?
He had
like
1340, 1338 to be exact, and 12 touchdowns. The year before that, he was second.
Numbers.
Yeah, the year after that, or year before that, he was second, 261 in total points. He had 1125 and 9 touchdowns. Year before that, he hit 300 again as the number one fantasy tight end. He had 14, 16, and 11. Year before that, and all these years are healthy. He's playing at least 15 games in all these years. He had 253 points as the number one fantasy tight end with 12, 29, and 5. Almost 300 the year before that as the number one scoring fantasy tight end at 13, 36, and 10. So, I mean, you got to imagine, like, the top end tight end is going to have 12 to 1,400 yards and 8 to 12 touchdowns. And I wouldn't be shocked if Kelce hit that, if Laporta hit that, if Andrews hit that, McBride hit that, Kittle hit that, Kincaid hit that, or Pitts hit that. Like, all of those guys are capable of those numbers. So I don't think Ferguson in Dallas is capable of that. I don't think Evan Ingram is capable. I think he's a 1,000-yard, 5-touchdown guy. David Njoku is going to have 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. Brock Bowers has too much competition. Goddard's not that guy. Schultz isn't that guy. TJ is going to miss half the year, or I would say TJ Hawkinson would be that guy. And if fantasy-wise, if you can get TJ Hawkinson late in a draft, stash him on your IR. He'll be back week 4, week 5, week 6, and then you have a number one fantasy tight end for the rest of the season. But yeah, then you have Pat Freiermuth, Hunter Henry, Luke Musgrave. Cole Kmet is a guy who, if he didn't have 3 other options above him on the depth chart, who would be a top 10 talent guy, right?
Yeah.
So
no, and that's kind of Cole Kmet's thing. Like, he has been such a red zone target. He's been a top 10 tight end for, I think, 2 years now. Yeah. But he just never had the yards to push him any further. And now he finally gets a quarterback who can give him those extra yards. But now he's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and a rookie all above him.
I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yes.
It's just how it is. So, I mean, it is what it is, I guess, in saying that. But yeah, I really like the tight end market this year. It's really good. You want to do running back? You want to do or defense? Defense or running back? Let's do defense. Let's save running back and receiver for the last 2.
All
right. So defense. There's only one defense for me, baby. It's the New York Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be hyper efficient with running the football or running the offense, and they're going to run the football with Breece Hall, giving that defense very, very long breaks on the sideline, keeping them fresh, keeping them healthy all year, and they're going to be able. I mean, they were the number 3. They went from 11 2 years ago. They went from 30th to 11 in the first year. Then they went from 11 to 3 last year, and now you're getting Aaron Rodgers back, who historically can run an offense very efficiently, not turn the ball over, not give the defense extra reps out there that they don't want, keeping them very fresh, keeping them very healthy. I think that it's the New York Jets.
Okay. All right.
Where are you at?
I'm going to go with a homer take.
You're going to say the Bears?
I'm going to say the Bears are going to finish as the number 1 fantasy defense.
What?
So everyone has heard the stat that after the Sweat trade, they were a top 10 defense in yards and points.
But we're talking fantasy defense here. You got to get turnovers. You got to get sacks. You got to get touchdowns.
I would not be surprised if the Bears finish top 5 in turnovers.
So what week did they trade for Sweat?
What isn't the deadline week 8? It would have had to have been week 8.
Week 8. So they traded for him week 8. So after they got Sweat, after week 8, New Orleans, they had 0 points. Carolina, they had 7. Detroit, they had 9. Minnesota, they had 16. That was the Monday night game we were at. That was abysmal. Yep. They had a bye week, and then they had 15. Then they had 18 against Cleveland, really good. But then they fired back with a 3 against Arizona, and 11 against Atlanta, who didn't have Kirk and was a very bad offense last year under Arthur Smith. And then they go into Green Bay and put up 5. So, I mean,
But
half the week they were putting up double-digit points.
If you look at our schedule this year, the first half of it is a very easy, relatively. It is an easy schedule for the NFL.
Let's look at it. So you get Tennessee. Let's look real quick. Let's look.
Go for it.
So we got Tennessee, great defensive matchup. Houston, not a great defensive matchup. Indy, I'm going not great defensive matchup there because of Richardson's running ability. JT, Michael Pittman Jr., the rookie out of Texas.
I think with it being an Eberflus revenge game, I think you'll have the guys fired up.
But they're on the road. They're on the road. It's not an easy fantasy game.
Right.
I'm not counting that as easy.
2-2. We'll just call it down the middle.
We'll just take that one off. We'll take that one off.
Okay, yeah.
The Rams, not an easy fantasy game for the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, easy fantasy game. Jacksonville at home, let's keep that one off. It's
could go
it's
either
at
way.
home, but it's Trevor Lawrence. At Washington, easy fantasy game. At Arizona, I'm going to take that one off. I don't think that's an easy fantasy game. I think that's a win for you guys, but I don't think the defense is going in there and producing 5 turnovers and holding them to 10 points. New England, easy fantasy game. Green Bay, not an easy fantasy game. Minnesota, I'm leaving off because we don't know what Sam Darnold is yet. Detroit, not an easy fantasy game.
Hold on, no. Detroit, have you looked at Jared Goff's numbers against the Bears last year?
No. Should we leave it off?
That is an easy game. I think he threw 5 interceptions in 2 games against us.
I'm gonna change it from this to this 4. So we're at 4-3. San Francisco, not an easy fantasy game. 4. At Minnesota, leaving it off because you don't know Sam Darnold. Detroit, leaving it off, and then at Seattle at home, so an easy fantasy game. So 5 easy ones, 4 hard ones in a bunch of 50.
Either way.
Yeah. So it's not terrible. It's not a terrible. I don't see that as a terrible schedule.
I
think 18 is very low for them. They're ranked as the 18th defense on Sleeper right now. I think that's very low. I think you can get a lot more value. I think they're more like I think they're certainly a top 10 fantasy defense next year.
No, I think they'll be middle of the road in sacks. I think they'll be top 10 in turnovers. I think they'll be right around 10 in yards.
But you're really high on Jalen.
Johnson?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah.
See, it's not Jalen Johnson I'm not high on. It's cornerback consistency in the NFL. Cornerbacks don't have 3 to 5 year stretches where they're the number 1 cornerback every year unless you're a Hall of Famer. You have to be that guy. And I'm not saying Jalen Johnson isn't that guy, but he has yet to prove that, if that makes sense. And
his biggest shortcoming has been the lack of turnover numbers, in my opinion. He does great in coverage. He's an okay tackler for a corner. He just doesn't really get the interception numbers you look for.
And that has to do with targets, and there's tons of other ways you go about that. I just think it's any year, because he's had 2 really good seasons, and any year you're just going to go whoop, 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 and fall off. Like Josh Norman. There's numbers of guys. Like Xavier Rhodes, Kyle Fuller, Jair Alexander gets a lot of talk still because he's a personality. But if you look at his play the past few years, it is not what you would expect from a shutdown corner. And he's billed as a top 3 corner every year.
Who was the guy from Miami? Xavier Howard?
Yeah, Xavier Howard.
He had like a 10 interception season and then got cut.
Brian Flores left, and then now he's a free agent, right?
Yeah.
So they have all the time in the NFL. Stephon Gilmore, 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, went unsigned until 2 weeks ago, 4 years later. 4 seasons later, he couldn't get a job until August. Like, these are not like these are like top of the game guys, and that's why the Darrelle Revises, the Deion Sanders, the Patrick Petersons, that's why those guys are so memorable, because there's only like 1, maybe 2 in a generation of players, right? Yeah. And we just had Jalen Ramsey even. There was a 6-year stretch where Jalen Ramsey was the number 1 corner in football, no question. And then the next season, he was a top 25 corner. Like there's just huge drop-offs, and you never know when they're going to happen. And so L'Jarius Sneed, that's why the Chiefs moved on. That's why they were okay with trading him, because they were like, even if we get one more season out of him, we'd have to pay him for 4 more. Like it's not worth it. So it's so hard to predict number one corners. And the Jets defense, Sauce Gardner, right? Like I think he's our current generation's Darrelle Revis, the Patrick Peter. Like he's that guy for this generation. The current Jalen Ramsey, like however you want to look at it, the current Charles Woodson.
The current number one.
Yeah, the current bona fide number one cornerback. So it just, I'm not saying Jalen Johnson's going to be a bum next year by any means, and I'm certainly worried about playing him twice. But I just don't know if he will be able to be that guy.
Keep it up.
So that is what it is. All right, next up, we got running backs. Let's run it back, okay? My number one running back this NFL season. Do you have any idea who I'm going to go with?
Is it inside the North?
No.
Then no.
Inside the North? Who would it be inside the? Oh, you were thinking Josh Jacobs.
Well, I was also playing with Jones. But
no.
Aaron
Jones is gonna be in a split backfield, bro. He ain't winning. He's gonna be like a top 25 fantasy running back if he's lucky.
No,
that'll only be if he gets the touchdowns.
I think he could be between 15 and 7.
He's gonna have to get a lot of touchdowns for that to happen. Kevin O'Connell does not like to run the ball. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think he's a locker room guy and like a rah like emotional guy, and KOC loves those guys. So I think that's his main purpose. No, my number one fantasy running back this season, Bijan Robinson.
Really?
Bijan. He is, they have said in this offense, he's going to be the focal point. He's going to be the offense. And that says a lot because Kirk Cousins loves a good run game. He loves getting to utilize play action. So if he can make his play action better by using Bijan twice as much in a game, he's going to sign off on it. Kirk's not a guy that needs 4,500 yards a season to be happy. Kirk's a guy that needs to plug into a role and run that role perfectly. Like Kirk is a guy who has the talent to be a top 5 quarterback, but wants to be a top 15 game manager. Right? He doesn't want to be the guy with all the pressure. He wants to be the guy that comes in, runs the offense efficiently, and then gets a good high five from the coach after for doing a good job. That's what he wants. Like he doesn't want to be one of the most telling quotes in Kirk Cousins' book. He says there was a game in college where he threw like 3 interceptions and it cost them the game. He said that he will never be the reason the team loses, even if it is a detriment to the team. Like even like he won't be the guy who throws the game-ending interception. He will not do it. He'd rather take the check down and give his guy a chance to get the first down than throw it to a guy who's gonna get the first down, but there's a chance it might get intercepted. He won't be that guy. So, and that's what I think has held him back his whole career. And Kevin O'Connell kind of tapped into that a little bit, did a little bit of a good job opening him up and helping him become a better quarterback. And I think he's improved. But a guy like Bijan, he had just under 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in the passing game last year. And then he had over 9, I think he had 975. Here, I probably, hold on, click on him. And Bijan, 976 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So only 8 touchdowns and had just shy of 1,500 yards, and he finished 9th in PPR. He had 58 receptions. So you're telling me this guy can't catch another 60 balls, have 600 yards, have 1,200 yards on the ground, and 8 touchdowns? Like that's, I think that's a good baseline for where he's at, and that's a baseline. So I love Bijan, and he's only 22.
So for me, the easy answer is CMC.
Obviously.
but I don't want to go the easy.
Yeah, so for everybody watching home, we're wiping Christian McCaffrey off this list because he's the consensus number one pick, which means he's getting hurt. So just wipe him off.
So, and it's also difficult just because of running backs, how different they can be year to year.
Yeah.
But I think the front runner for me is Breece Hall on the Jets.
Yeah, for sure.
I think where Aaron is at in his career, they're going to be running the ball a lot, throwing off the play action a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think, was it last year he got hurt or his rookie year?
Year he got hurt, I think.
Rookie year he got hurt.
Let me see if I can pull up his stats here. Yeah, his rookie year he had 80 rushing attempts for 863 yards. Last year he finished PPR 2. So this Breece Hall take, it's a really good take. And so last year he finished PPR 2, 994 yards, had 76 receptions, 95 targets. So I think that number comes down, right?
Yeah.
That's probably like 60 targets. And then he had 591 yards and 4 touchdowns on receptions. So hold on, so continue to give your take on Breece Hall real quick.
Yeah, no, I just think with Aaron's passing ability and what that passing offense is going to look like, I can see them games where they're not loading the box because they're afraid of the pass defense, and then Breece takes over. And I can see it working the opposite way. They load the box and Aaron takes over.
Yep.
So if everything is rolling on the Jets, it really is pick your poison as far as game planning for the opposing defense.
Especially with Garrett Wilson out there.
Yeah.
Man beater. I mean, he'll tear people up if they're in man. So the reason I said the Breece Hall take was so good. So 2021, JT finishes as the number 1 back. Do you know who the number 2 back was that year?
Jacobs?
Austin Eckler.
Oh.
2022, guess who finished number 1?
Eckler.
You know who number 2 was that year? Christian McCaffrey. Guess who finished first the following year?
CMC.
Christian McCaffrey. Guess who? I just said who was second last year.
Breece Hall. Yeah, Breece Hall.
So over the past 3 years, every year the guy to finish second finishes first the following year, and nobody else in the top 10 repeats as a top 10 guy the next year. So everybody right here, I have it. Everybody. So there is one exception. Actually, I lied. Not everybody. There's one exception. So I'll read off the whole running back list, okay? So 2021 is where we'll start. JT, Jonathan Taylor, finished 30 spots worse the following season. Dropped 30 spots. Okay, Eckler improved by 1 spot. Najee Harris, number 3, finished 11 spots worse. Joe Mixon, 7 spots worth. James Conner, 15 spots worth. Leonard Fournette, 7 spots worth. Zeke Elliott, 15 spots worth. Antonio Gibson, 20 spots worse. Alvin Kamara, 7 spots worth. Cordero Patterson, 22 spots worse. So that's all of 2021. Okay. So 2022, number 1 back, Austin Eckler, finishes 23 spots worse. Number 2 spot, Christian McCaffrey, goes up 1 spot, finishes the number 1 next season. Josh Jacobs drops 24 spots. Derrick Henry, who was the 4th running back, 6 spots worse. So he is the only one to repeat as a top 10 fantasy back, and he still finished 6 spots worse than the year prior. Saquon dropped 8 spots. Nick Chubb got hurt, dropped right off the board. Aaron Jones, 30 spot drop. Ramondre Stevenson, 27 spots he dropped. Tony Pollard at 9, dropped 5 spots. Dalvin Cook at 10, dropped off in sub-top 50, like we talked about that a few weeks ago.
He's in the abyss right now.
So back-to-back, 21 and 22, every single guy dropped at least 6 spots, or at least 5 spots, and only one of them repeated as a top 10 at any time in that 3-year stretch. So between 21 and 23. So by that standard, you can wipe all these guys off as finishing as a top 10 running back, or pretty much a top 10 running back. So Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, Rashad White, Raheem Mostert, Joe Mixon, Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson, Gibbs, and Henry. Now, I think Bijan, probably Gibbs, Kyron, and ETN all have a chance to break that streak. All four of them do. But the odds are what the odds are, right? You're going to get maybe one, and in a great year, you're going to get two of those guys that aren't the second overall back to repeat in the top 10, right? Like it's just not good odds to take one of those. So here's a whole list of guys to keep an eye out for, right? Like just we're going to branch off for a second off just the number one pick. So Breece Hall, obviously. Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Pacheco, Kyron Williams, I think, has a chance. Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. Don't forget about Alvin Kamara. The dude's a PPR animal. Okay. James Cook. Aaron Jones could make a comeback. I'm not saying he will. Like I said, I don't expect him to be anywhere near the number one. Najee Harris, Bijan Robinson, all those guys have really good. And another name we're leaving off here is Saquon Barkley. Saquon has a really good shot. So
he can stay healthy.
Just remember, like, it's
very
not great
year to year with running backs.
Yeah, very year to year. That's why you should stack up. We've talked about this a little bit, and we're going to talk about some more with the wide receivers. I like the hero running back strategy. You get one running back you know is going to be top 5. You know this guy's going to be good, right? Your Breece Halls, your Bijan Robinsons, your Kyron Williams, your Josh Jacobs. Excuse me. Guys that you know are going to be the main focal point in their offense, and if they stay healthy, they're running it all year for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, right? You go get that guy, and then you stack receivers, and you ensure, because the hit percentage on receivers way higher than on running backs.
Oh, yeah.
So with that,
there's a lot more of them to hit on.
Exactly. So with that being said, let's talk about some wide receivers.
Let's do it.
Let me go back to my other page here. I'm old-fashioned. I like to write things in notebooks.
Pen and paper. Write checks.
So my number one fantasy wide receiver next year, none other, Jamar Chase.
Oh, no way.
It's going to be Jamar Chase because that man wants to get paid. He wants to be paid. And to get paid, you got to beat the best, because to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to look at Jamar Chase and go, we'll give you whatever you want if Justin Jefferson goes out there and outperforms him, especially with Sam Darnold throwing him the football. Like, they're going to look at him and go, sorry, JJ's still better, right? So he's going to have to go out there and compete against JJ, against CeeDee Lamb, against Tyreek Hill, and prove I can do everything they can do plus some, because I'm worth $36 million. And that's what he wants. So I think that, Joe Burrow being back, the loss in targets of Tyler Boyd now being in Tennessee, right? They only have T. Higgins now. So between the loss of targets, the motivation, his quarterback being back, the obvious rapport they have, I think it's a no-brainer. Jamar Chase is about to go off.
So I actually really like that take. I was going to go Jamar Chase too, and there was actually a couple factors for it for me. The biggest one being, when you turn on the film, obviously you can see Jamar Chase is that guy.
Yeah, he's special.
When you get on Pro Football Focus and start looking through the stats, he hasn't had that 1,800-yard, 12-touchdown season like the CeeDee Lambs, the Justin Jeffersons,
Tyreek Hills.
Yes. The other part of it is, I don't think Tyreek Hill is going to go for 1,700 yards for a third time. I don't think he can finish number one a third time.
Yeah.
CD, I think it will be difficult for him to have the same season he had last year, especially with all the drama that's kind of going on in that building right now.
Yep.
And then as far as Justin Jefferson, he's a great guy. I just don't like Sam Darnold. I mean, I think he is the best receiver in the NFL. I just don't trust who's throwing him the football.
I'll be in, if I can. JJ, in my opinion, is akin to a DeAndre Hopkins circa 2016, a Julio Jones, a Calvin Johnson, the Randy Moss. Like, he's that version of this generation's receiver. And so is Tyreek Hill. We're just lucky enough to have two of them. Tyreek Hill, unguardable. and quarterback proof. JJ, unguardable and quarterback proof. I mean, he was going for. I mean, let me get the actual numbers here, so just so I don't misspeak.
Well, while you're pulling that up, can I say one more?
Yeah, continue.
I have already spoken on Amon-Ra. I don't think he's going to have 1,500 yards again. So that really leaves a huge opening where Jamar Chase can be the number one wide receiver in the league, having 1,500 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was pulling up the stats here, and now this is with Kirk Cousins, okay? But it's important to note, Kevin O'Connell does not change his offense based on the personnel. He schemes his offense and plugs people in. Okay, so he doesn't change up the offense for the personnel. He changes the personnel for the offense. So very important to know, it's going to run very similarly. It's always run this way. So to start the season, JJ had 12 targets, 9 receptions, 150 yards. 13 targets, 11 receptions, 160 yards. 13 targets, 7 receptions, 150 yards. 9 targets, 6 receptions, only 85 yards. But that was against Carolina, who I have told you before had an amazing pass defense.
You are high on their defense.
Their passing defense out in Carolina, go look at the stats. Just go look at the stats if you don't believe me. And then he played against Kansas City, was hurt early in that game. A lot of people don't know. Got hurt early in the game, had to come out late in the game, only had 6 targets for 3 receptions, 28 yards, but didn't even play 75% of the snaps. So and he wasn't healthy for most of them. Like, he just not a game that you should really count as a standard, right?
Yeah.
He comes back week 1 against the Raiders, 18% of the snaps, 3 targets, 2 receptions. So right away they're trying to get in the ball, comes out of the game hurt. Unfortunately, that was week 14. Week 15, we play at Cincinnati, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 84 yards. Once again, heavy targets, heavy receptions, right?
Yep.
Week 16 against Detroit, 10 targets, 6 receptions, 141 yards and a TD. Huge numbers, right? 26 points in that game. Next week against Green Bay, 11 points, 10 targets, 5 receptions, 60 yards. Once again, huge volume. And then once again, closing out the season against Detroit, 14 targets, 12 touchdowns, 192 yards and a touchdown. And none of those games I just stated were with, only 2 of them were with the same quarterback. So this was Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaren Hall, all splitting quarterback duties amongst those 5 games. And
he was still putting up numbers.
So you give Sam Darnold, a guy who, hasn't been the best, but is certainly better than Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and Jaren Hall, right? You give him a full offseason to really settle in, learn the offense, and build chemistry. I just don't see a world in which JJ isn't at least the lone star of the Viking, right? Like the lone shining bright star in the abysmal in the Viking season, right?
Jordan Addison, I am high on him. The Vikings know their wide receivers.
Yeah. And then going back to 2022, there were only 5 games where he didn't get at least 11 targets. Like, Kevin O'Connell will pump this dude's tires. Going back to 2021, his first year with Kevin O'Connell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games without 10 targets. And each 9, 8, 4, 9, 7. So even then, he's still getting targets. Not like he's not getting them. Yeah. And in the 4 target game, he had 71% of snaps, so he was out for a fourth of the game. Like, probably only hits 6 or 7 targets that game, but still. It's just Kevin O'Connell will consistently. The JJ is the focal point. They run like they've talked about. They run whole concepts and schemes to scheme JJ open sometimes. Like, they want the best player getting the ball the most. And that's what any offense wants, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of common sense, but it's a little bit different when you have not a whole lot around him, and from the quarterback position, that is, because the Vikings have plenty of weapons. It's just the quarterback isn't all that great.
It is hard when your best player is a dependent position. Because now he's having to call games to get him the ball.
Exactly. But see, that's what I was saying. That's what he did before. That's what he's always done.
And
that's why I think it bodes well for the people who end up with JJ. You're going to get JJ to steal at the 7, 8, 9th pick in your drafts, right? He's not going top 4 right now because Sam Darnold's throwing in the football and people don't trust it. And I get it. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold by any means, right? Like he was the 3rd overall pick who got beat up in New York. And, the only positive I have for Sam Darnold is he went 4-2 as a starter to end his time in Carolina. He played a really good game against Washington or against the Rams when the Niners were on their break week. Like they had already secured a playoff spot. And he's shown that he's a different quarterback than he was his first 3 years in the NFL. Now he gets a full offseason with Kevin O'Connell, a premier offensive mind, former quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. I just, all that is to say JJ is quarterback proof. Trust JJ. Don't worry. I don't know if he finishes wide receiver 1 because of that, but he's certainly going to finish in the top 10. And in my opinion, probably top 5. He's probably going to have 15 to 1,800 yards and 7 to 10 touchdowns. So, you got anything you want to add? Anything you want to say fantasy-wise?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking around, guys. We know it was a long one. We're going to make them much more crisp and clean during the season. They'll be very short and to the point, start, sit. This guy did good. This guy did bad. This is why you should trust this guy. This is why you shouldn't trust this guy. So don't get used to the 40-minute run times. We'll cut that down in season. So we'll see y'all next time.